Oh, yeah. Just Ryan yesterday. Okay.
Good morning, good morning. As this meeting is called to order. Approval of the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda. We get a chance to take a look at it.
Yes.
Madam Chair, can we just do David Tolsis, Assistant General Counsel, can we just do a roll call for the record, please?
Absolutely. Yes, roll call.
Here.
Um, how do we do? Who's gonna call?
I am Rebecca Schultz, Broward MPO. Chair Colburn.
Here.
Good morning. Vice Chair Cooper.
Present.
Deputy Vice Chair Daffy.
Here.
Executive Committee Member Walker.
Here.
And Executive Committee Member Fur.
Here.
Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, so, did we approve the agenda? I feel like, Otis here. Okay, we have a first and a second on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Very well, and we're on to public comments.
Holding off the stampede.
Okay, how are we gonna deal with all these people?
Oh.
All right, so we have a presentation today on the federal discretionary grants. Jennifer Tusi and Paul Cavarisi.
Good morning, Paul Cavaresi, Broward MPO. Jennifer sends her apologies. She can't be here today. She came in late last night from Washington, D.C.
Their flights were delayed and delayed.
Not my fault.
But that was American. Yeah.
So you've seen this QR code before, but we share it at every meeting, every TAC meeting, every CAC meeting when we give the update, and anytime we talk about grants. This is a link to our monthly grants coordination Zoom meeting. And the purpose is two purposes in that. One is to make sure we're not competing against each other. Now, there are some grants that have a lot of money and you're definitely not competing regionally, but there are some other ones, particularly on capital, where, you know, the politics of it, we're only going to get so many in certain areas. Additionally, it's like we said, not just, it's for coordination. So if two cities next to each other, let's say Miramar and Pembroke Pines are on and they both have a good idea, well, can we combine that project into one? And that adds extra points on applications. So we're also doing a grants education portion with our TAC and CAC, and we're sharing it with you today. So what we encourage our applicants to do is to start goals first. Do not invent a project because you see a grant. There's so many times I've gotten phone calls. Hey, there's this grant for building a bridge. So I want to build a bridge here. And it's like, well, what do you have? It's like, well, I wrote something down on a cocktail napkin. Like, okay, you're going to need a lot more information than that. And this is due in 7 weeks. So start by looking at your CIPs, anything you have that's already planned out, that has funding attached to it, that already has public support, and then align those projects with potential grant opportunities. And you need to do that because also on the application side, you need the data, you need a narrative, you might need a benefit cost analysis. And if it's an idea that was just recently cooked up, you don't have any of that. Okay. And lastly, you need to be able to promote that. Your social media, educate in DC. If you're going after a large capital grant, plan in your schedule at some point to go up to DC to educate our delegation about that grant and why it should be funded. Okay, and lastly, and this kind of brings everything full circle, before you apply, make sure your team has capacity to manage the grant. If you would like war stories, please talk to Mr. Cross after the meeting. So, quick checklist. I'm not going to go through this because we already went through it once, but when you're selecting a grant, go through this list. Have your city manager, your management, ask these questions of themselves and their staff. Okay. Particularly, is there time and resources to apply? Because if you're going to put the effort into it, you really need to go full throttle. Okay. And then lastly, once again, flow chart says the same thing. Okay. So now our grants presentation. I don't know if you've seen this format before, but if you follow along on the left side, it shows you where we're at in our grant for each individual grant. So in our Thriving Communities program, which we're wrapping up in March, we're at the execution stage. We just selected a location in Oakland Park for our final workshop. I hope to see everybody there. We're going to be looking at TOD strategies that can then be turned into updated code for your municipalities. The Railroad Crossing Elimination Program. Andrew in our office has done a great job managing 6 cities, the FRA, and everyone in between to get everybody in lockstep on how we need to proceed with this. This is a $19 million project, $15 million grant for safety along the FEC corridor. That's the corridor that Brightline operates on. Our Reconnecting Communities program, we're at the pre-award, still in negotiations with the city on their local match, and then also with USDOT on the on receiving the grant. Keep in mind, this was announced well over 6 months ago, and we still have not received the funding. So when you apply for grants, realize the gap between the award versus actually receiving the money.
Question for you before you go through.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so you have.
Yes, Chair.
Yeah. You have apply, review 1, and then pre-award. I mean, once you've won, it's the pre-award sounds like, I mean, when you won, it was awarded to you, it sounds. So can you just explain the pre-award part?
There's a large time gap between when the award is announced and we actually start having conversations with USDOT and receiving the money.
Okay,
So we'll have an example of that towards the end of this.
okay,
I know it doesn't make sense because it doesn't. And it's very frustrating on our end. It's not like you get a check or you have a winning lottery ticket. There's, yes, you've won
So-
because you submitted a lot of paperwork and now you have more paperwork.
so you won because they're saying that it will be awarded. It
Right.
hasn't been awarded.
Yeah.
Okay, but it just hasn't been awarded.
Right.
Okay, you just haven't gotten the prize.
Correct.
Yeah, the prize hasn't come in, but the prize winner has to fill out more paperwork for the IRS.
They
Yeah.
called your name, you're the winner.
You get to be on stage, but your medal will eventually show up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
You're
Okay.
graduating, you're just not getting your diploma at the time.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, our SMART grant, still in the pre-award for that one. We've actually invested several MPO resources in that. We're transitioning from MPO funding to the SMART grant funding to continue our digital twin and all the fun products that will come out of that one. So this is the example of where we've won. The prioritization process pilot program, or the 4P, quad P, P to the 4th. We have many nicknames for this one. This one we just won a few weeks ago, but we have not, but USDOT has not yet engaged us on how we're going to go about receiving the funding.
Yeah.
A little, sorry.
Actually, I just
Yeah.
a minor correction because it happened yesterday. I was on the phone with Federal Highway Administration, got sidetracked from something else I was doing. And they're ready to start rocking and rolling with the agreement. So we're moving as fast as we can with them. But they just got the award notification information and the grant agreement, and they're going through it with their own local legal up at FHWA's office in Tallahassee, and then we'll see it probably maybe next month, maybe the month after.
That is light speed.
You can tell what this is about.
Yeah, I don't, where is this money come, to come in a MPO?
Yes, all of this is MPO dollars.
To do what? I mean, it's a hard one.
Okay, so this one's is interesting because it builds off of what we're doing with the SMART grant, which is creating an AI system for decision making. So it takes databases from all different areas and feeds it into the decision making process. So let's say this project, you have a project that may be in a extreme weather area, that you're gonna have some flooding, you're gonna have different things going on. It'll measure that out and tell you how long the infrastructure will last and all the rest. So it just depends on what switch you flip in the SMART grant. This actually then will feed that prioritization process into what we're doing with the SMART grant. It's actually very complementary to each other. And when you see what we're doing with the SMART grant, that's when you'll probably go, wow, this is even more confusing. No, that said, I think that you'll appreciate it because it's really very high tech. There's no discretionary thinking at that point. It's very much the computer is driving the whole thing.
An autonomous.
So the grant.
Right.
You did the application.
The SMART grant, that's the one that's being implemented in the city of Miramar?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Um,
We're adding the 2 million that we got from the quad P.
I'm sorry?
And we're gonna add the quad P to that one too. So it's going from 2 million to about 4 million.
Okay. And that's pretty much the description that you just gave. It's really a data driven.
Yes.
So, but at the end, once it's implemented, what do we see?
It'll be brought into all the processes. It'll be available for the city to utilize, to make land use decisions, to make budgeting decisions as far as, what type of capital you're gonna need for the fire department, what a type of, it actually brings that all together. It actually will take the analysis for affordable housing and say, okay, well, if I build so many units in this location, this is what it'll bring. It'll actually take your demographics on education and say, hey, you have enough employees in this location to do this. However, if you bring in this particular type of education opportunity, then these employees will have different benefits and where they could work. And then you overlay the transportation network on top of that. So then that's access to jobs. It's amazing. It really actually is. It's hard for me to describe this in a way that it's pretty complicated, and I can't believe we're able to do this. And that's when I was out in Miramar on Thursday and Friday, and we were shooting with the BBC. I started realizing that this is pretty far out there. I just never thought we'd get to this point, at least in my lifetime, on having information for elected officials. Sal was very excited to see it because it's like, oh my God, this is gonna make my life easier explaining it to the board members. Projects.
Yeah. But it does exist in other areas.
No,
It does
it
not
does not. This does not exist anywhere else on Earth.
on Earth.
On Earth, that's why BBC was here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought it existed in some other country, maybe.
Not yet, not
They-
yet.
No?
They're looking at it in India. They're looking at it in a couple of, but
I thought it said California. had some.
California DOT is looking at a still model of what we're doing, but it's only a segment of the overall. So we have partners with the SMART grant. We have partners in Chicago, LA, Denver, Washington, DC, Atlanta, and Boston. And they're all looking at trying to see how this prioritization process thing, the automated twin, basically the digital twin will actually, through AI, will be able to measure these things in other areas using the same processes, but different databases. So this is the first time anywhere where databases will, let's say the county's Jennifer Harado's the climate change database can plug in with Ralph Stone's housing database. We can plug in with the DOT's model. They can plug in with REMI and all of those other things that people use to make decisions. And all of these things will feed together and it analyzes. You enter in a question, you want to, how many cars is this going to generate in this location on, October 31st? It will actually get down to that level. If we have a storm surge, how much of this area is going to be underwater? How many feet? How many inches? It can give you that data. It actually can then take, we're having a rain event today, and this is what it's doing. That data comes in from NOAA. It will tell you literally down to how much water will accumulate in spots. So your emergency management people will be able to go in and say, oh, don't bring vehicles there because they're going to get flooded. And so instead of urban flooding notifications, you'd actually get a geocoded area saying flooding will occur here. Don't drive here. The insurance companies are going to be loving this too.
That was amazing.
It's yeah, I've never seen data processed like this in my life. Ever.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, it's an overlay of everybody's data in one system. And you ask, say, for lack of a better expression, it's Jan or whatever.
Yeah.
Dan, we want to build a bridge in Hallandale connecting, south or whatever. And you ask Jan that question and Jan will come back like Siri and say, oh no, that would be horrible.
Well, I
don't want to dummy it down, but, and then what discretionary, because data in is data out.
Well, and you
So,
have to rely on good data. I mean, that's part of, you have to be, but I mean, a lot of people have a lot of really great data. They really do. Our friends up in Jacksonville, my colleague up there, he created a data center and it was great. All of the folks from United Way, everybody's in that data center, but they're just sitting at desks with their same data in front of them. What this does is actually takes all the data from all the desks and combines them together. And you can actually click on, I want additional data, I want less data. If you don't like that data source, you can click it off and then continue on, or you don't need that data source. It's for decision-making processes, it's going to be, I'd like to call it the single source of truth, because you'll be able to go to that and say, here, this is really what you can choose not to pay attention to it, but we're human. We are human. But talking to Jan and asking the question of Jan will tell you everything you needed to know to build that bridge from Hallandale into Aventura. And where it would go, where it would make sense, where it would have the most or least impacts. It literally is at that level.
That's fine. It just won't help you decide what to have for dinner.
No.
So our next one is the charging and fueling infrastructure grant. This one we applied for back in September, so 3 months ago. We're hoping to hear back winter of 2025. As you see, a lot of these have very broad time ranges on it. So sometimes we just get seasons. This one will be for up to 20 EV charging stations throughout the county. So once again, another $18 million capital grant. Protect, we're in the process of applying for this one. It's an update of the application we submitted last year with updates based on feedback we received from USDOT on where they identified weaknesses in last year's application. Now, this always ends with a list of upcoming grants. I'm not going to go through each one of these individually, but everything is hyperlinked. So if you pass it on to your staff, city managers, this is also available to your TAC members every month, so they know what's coming down the pike. Also, a lot of these grants are annual. So for instance, the RAISE grant, we know comes out every year. And it's pretty much been the same since the Biden administration took over. So you can start predicting what goes in that grant by reading a previous notice of funding opportunity, or NOFO, N-O-F-O. And then you'll see upcoming grants. So winter, December. So any questions on our current grant applications?
Real quick, if you can go back just
Absolutely.
2 slides. One on intercity rail,
One more.
due in a couple days. Did we apply?
The MPO did not apply for that one. The MPO is in an interesting situation as in we don't own anything. So in order to do particularly planning grants, we can apply for on our own. But any sort of capital, we always need a partner in that one.
Is this different from the new starts, small starts?
Yes, yeah, it actually is. I think.
Because I know we're applying there.
Yeah, Mayor, basically, I can say that now, right? Basically what's happening with the county and the state DOT are working together on that, the process of the South, particularly the South. That process probably would have been eligible to go after this grant. I'm not aware that they applied. But we have basically,
I know they're in flux of
yeah,
they're in flux of changing from small to new.
New Start because of Miami-Dade combining it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting what's going on. We have one more year of funding available for these grants that Paul's talking about today, and then the funding bill goes away, the existing funding bill, because all this is, in that current funding bill. We're running out of time. And we had, well, I thank you to my team and you as the board members, you allowed us to apply for as much as we could. And we took advantage of that. Many of our partners didn't have that opportunity or didn't choose to take that opportunity.
Would you do me a favor and could you send that?
I can ping it. We can ping it too. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I'll find out what.
Byron.
Paul, thank you so much for the presentation. I think you touched on this in the beginning, but again, how can the municipalities get engaged in these grants so that we're part of the whole process or assist? How do we we get that information out and what's the process again?
So that's a great question. So multiple touch points. So right here at the MPO board, also monthly at our TAC meetings, we also have this monthly meeting where we talk about coordination. So for instance, the MPO is going to partner with Broward County on an SS for Safe Streets and Roads for All capital grant on Northwest 31st between Broward and McNabb. That's been a project that's a long time in the works. A lot of safety, very much meets the criteria of the SS4A. So we're based on what we know about previous applications, we're trying to maximize our odds of winning. But as far as touch points go, there's the meetings multiple times a month. Feel free to email. Also through our MTP, which will be adopted today, hopefully. There's a lot of projects that have been identified and potentially which grants they could apply for. I'll say that our consultants did a very good job of looking at their scoring of how they would score. And really what they've done is identify what the weaknesses are in those projects and how they can be improved. And we can look at how to improve those for future grants. But I'd really say start looking at your capital improvement program and aligning those with the grant opportunities you see out there now.
And the managers are also aware that opportunities are out there. We've gone to City Managers Association and so forth. I do want to let you know that Deerfield Beach applied for that grant last year and was awarded the grant. And that was that project that I had a conversation with Mayor Trontalis last month, where it's like, well, yeah, you could have applied for this money. And I really encourage each of the cities to apply for this money. That you can have multiple applications from the same area. They want to get the money out on the street.
Thank you.
So this list here, these are grants that MPO is not planning to apply or you can't. None of these here. These are just grants that the cities can apply for. Do you have a list of the ones that you have applied for or that's in process or that are upcoming as well?
That was his presentation of the grants that we are currently managing right now.
And Madam Chair, just to share with you, we don't have the capacity to do any more than what we have and what we have put in for. My team would kill us if we apply for more.
Okay, so there are other grants out there that you could have applied for or potentially.
Yeah,
But these are the ones that you have identified and working on.
correct. Based on staff capacity, because there's a certain point, I can only push the people so far before they snap.
If Madam Chair, if I can take a personal note, Executive Director Stewart is being very humble. We have an embarrassment of riches at the national level to the point where grants come out and they say Broward won it. And it's very sarcastic. It's like, well, obviously they did. We've tens of millions of dollars in federal grants for an organization this size. Actually, not just this size. tens of millions of dollars in grants for any MPO. And then when you compare it to the size of us,
Yeah.
it's just unheard of across the nation.
Comey, my colleague that runs the Los Angeles MPF, he has shy of about 500 employees, and they haven't won one.
Wow. 500 employees.
Yeah.
You can brag about that, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't know,
He's got bragging rights there. All right, so those particular ones that we talked about that you wouldn't apply for, those are not, are those available to the cities as well?
Yes.
Okay,
We,
so there are additional grants other than these that the cities could review?
these are all the open USDOT grants.
Those are all the open?
Yeah, and the ones that we
USDOT.
know that are upcoming. So we share this with your TAC member every month so they know what's coming down the pike. So everybody's playing with the same level of information.
Okay,
Everything that we have, we put out. There's no educational advantage.
got it. All right,
think how some of these are opening, or they have an opening date, and a closing date of almost 2 years, but the other two at the bottom have one of only it's only a 3-month opening and closing date, and the last one is only 4-month closing, open, 4 or 5 months.
So each subdivision of USDOT manages each of these individual grants and they put their own criteria on them. Some of them have hard open and close, some of them are rolling. Some of them, they make up the rules as they go along.
are they state grants as well?
We've not come across many state grants. Usually the state will fund through earmarks. The state grants are very few and far between, and from what I've heard from the applicants are quite arduous or very niche. So if you want a grant to do a trail through a swamp, they might have something available.
Okay.
Trail through a
Okay, okay. In your presentation, you said that if we applied for it, we should educate your delegation.
Yes, Chair.
What delegation would that be?
So your federal delegation. So I believe in Miramar, it's Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz.
All right,
You can also reach out to the senators, whom Rick Scott's office or whomever will replace.
the South Florida delegation.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, even at the Senate level, I mean, we were very lucky on both the quad keys and the SMART grant. Senator Scott and Senator Rubio wrote letters of support. And that does not happen, especially for here. So we've been really very happy with the bipartisan level of support that we've been getting.
okay. Well, thank you so much for the presentation. I don't know if anyone else had any other questions. Appreciate that, and kudos to you guys for making other MPO jealous.
We're gonna have a video presentation from Congresswoman Schultz during my presentation. She just taped it up in Washington yesterday, day before.
Tuesday.
Yeah. And Tuesday, thank you. And she was gonna come in live on a feed, but when you do that, then something happens on Congress, and then they do this, and then they do that. So I wanted to make sure she was able to communicate with you, so we did it. We filmed it, and you'll get to see that. She's really proud of how much we've been winning. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We have a legislative update.
Oh.
Virtual, Becker.
They're trying to get on.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay, put her on.
Washington's a little hard to get, like the weather's really bad up there right now. Yeah. May not be snow, it's ice.
Lauren, if you can unmute.
Hurricane.
Lauren? Okay, so then in the interest of time, I'm going to give the federal update. We thank our partners at Becker for sending information. So there's a lot of transition going on in Washington, D.C. All the secretaries are turning over, including the Secretary of Transportation. Becker reaffirms that they have a very good working relationship with incoming Secretary Duffy. Also, a lot of the career staff. Mr. Bedell with Becker was under Secretary Elaine Chao in USDOT. So that was only 4 years ago, and a lot of the staff are still there. So they do have a very good working relationship with those who are pushing the paper and making the decisions or getting things to the secretary's desk. We're also taking a look at reauthorization, both at internally through your federal advocacy team, but also at the national level through the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations and the National Association of Regional Councils. You've heard both those as AMPO and NARC, of which executive director serves on as seats on both. I forgot what his titles are, but they're important. So
Guy from Broward.
with all the grants. So as we move forward, we know that change is coming, particularly on the grant side. We think that some of the criteria will be changed. A lot of these grants still exist in law for the next 18 months. So they have to get pushed out, but the criteria for them is not set in stone. Our expectation is that there's going to be less emphasis on equity, more emphasis on business development and return on investment. So as we go through and we get more updates, obviously we'll pass them along to you. And if we need any actions from this board, we are looking to you to be our leaders at the national level.
Okay. Are they gonna do a presentation afterwards? Did you have something?
I think we're.
Okay, we're good.
So just to share, Madam Chair and members, basically, this is our last executive committee meeting for the year, as you know, and we won't have one in January, so we come back in February. There is still some things that I'm going to bring to the other board, which we have the Safe Street Summit up in West Palm Beach. That's February 6th and 7th. And then we have the Transportation Academy, which many of you participated in, starts back up on February 20th of next year. And then in May, we're going to be doing the annual awards, the State of the Region banquet. And this year's nominees, phenomenal group, for everyone from Glenn Wilshire and Karen Boutros to Bill Walker with Water Taxi and Dodie Keith, who's been around for a long time working on projects here in Broward and has made, some significant changes to our communities. That said, I think unless you have any other questions,
On the awards,
yes.
the nominees, is that MPO selects those, or do you have a committee?
We have a small committee of executive staff here, and we look at who's out there. And because we don't want to, I don't want to affect you guys in one way or another, because if you pick somebody and then you pick somebody and then I don't want to have you guys argue.
No, he's not talking about, talking about awards.
Awards, yeah.
All right, thank you. So that's it?
Yeah.
We're good? Okay, then meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.